The time is now. We are going to begin predicting every NFL team's record by prediction for the upcoming 2024 NFL season. No better division to start with, I'd say, than the NFC North, which might be the best division in all of football, might be the most competitive. With three teams, a lot of people are projecting to have a record over 500. The Vikings, no one's really giving them much credit at all. But I'm really excited to get into this here.
Yeah, so am I. Like you said, I have three teams here in the NFC North, even in double-digit win territory, which is crazy.
That's delusional.
I don't know about delusional.
Has that even happened over the last couple years? I guess it did happen. The Ravens, the Browns, and the Steelers all did have double-digit wins, and the Bengals almost did.
There you go. Yeah. Well, so I'm not even going to be that delusional in predicting that because I don't have
the Vikings 9-8.
No, I don't have the Vikings even coming that close. But I guess I'll just kind of start with the Bears here. A little bit of homerism bias since we're just from Chicagoland, but we're going to start off with our Chicago Bears. So week 1, we've got Titans at Bears. We're picking the Bears for this one. Then Chicago at Houston. Rolling Houston here, my future town. Bears at Colts, week 3. Taking the Bears in this one as well. Then we've got Rams at Bears. Going to take the Rams here. This was a tough one for me, but I'm going to go with the Rams.
I agree.
Then we got the Panthers at the Bears. Easy pick for me, taking the Bears. And then we've got the London game here. Bears and Jaguars. I'm taking Jacksonville. Week 7 is the bye, but week 8, we've got the Bears at Washington. Still taking the Bears, though. Bears at Cardinals in week 9, taking the Bears. The Patriots at the Bears. We're going with the Bears. Green Bay at Chicago. Going with Green Bay for this one. Minnesota at Chicago. Going to take Chicago. Chicago at Detroit. Taking Detroit. Chicago at San Fran. Going to go with San Fran. Chicago at Minnesota. Going with Chicago. Detroit at Chicago. Taking the Bears. Seattle at Chicago. Taking Chicago. And Chicago at Green Bay. Taking Green Bay here. So I think that the Bears are going to lose both of their games to Green Bay, but they're going to split with Detroit, win one, lose one, and they will win both of their games against Minnesota. And so that's a total record of 10-7 on the season.
I would love for this to be true, but I heard people saying this going into last year, looking at a lot of those easier games that they should have and most definitely should have won. So I'm going to take a little bit more of a pessimistic and also I believe to be a more realistic approach when dealing with a rookie quarterback, when dealing with a questionable head coach, a defensive-minded head coach, with all of the talent being loaded onto the offense. Not saying they're going to have a bad defense, but all the big players here are on the offensive side of the ball, whereas the head coach is not. That just seems like a disconnect that won't be able to be overcome to get to that true point of playoff-type success. I have the Bears going 7-10, only a 3-game gap from you, but it's a significant one. 7-10 is what they went this past year. Even though they won a lot more of their games toward the end of the season, they kind of snuck up to that 7-10. I have them winning against the Titans to start the year off. I am not a big believer in the Titans. When we get to the AFC South, you will see that I'll probably have the Titans being the worst in that division. I also have them then losing to an AFC South team here in the Texans, of course, your new hometown. Then Chicago at Indianapolis. So they start with 3 AFC South teams. Kind of crazy there. Indianapolis is going to win this game. Not only are they at home, but Anthony Richardson should be healthy at least for the first 3 weeks here of the season.
I don't know. Didn't he get injured in week 2 last season?
I think it was week 4. But okay. I mean, I'm not saying he's going to stay healthy for the entirety of the season, but I hope that he at least has 3 games in him.
I got you.
Rams at the Bears. I'm going to take the Rams here. I'm going to be a big believer in the Rams. We're going to be consistent through all these divisional record predictions. So you'll see, I will have the Rams with a good record when it's all said and done. I think I have the Rams beating every team in the NFC North here today. And so that will be reflected when we get down to the NFC West. Carolina at Chicago. I will give the Bears this one. I am not ever going to give them a win in London when Jacksonville just owns London. We know what they did there last year.
Yeah.
It's basically their home away from home.
I picked them for the same reason.
Right. They will be considered the home team, I believe, in this game, even though I know it's not truly their home. But yeah, taking the Jaguars there. And then Bears at Washington after the bye. So it's beneficial that they get a little rest after all the travel going to London. I will give them the win here, even though I feel like they will lose either at Washington or at home against Carolina. I just feel like one of these games they're not winning because the Bears are the Bears, and then the Bears will probably win they're not supposed to. Maybe they'll sneak one away against the Colts or Green Bay. I actually have the Bears going on here to lose at Arizona, another team that I don't think will be as bad as everyone's saying. I think Kyler Murray's actually decent. We saw what they did toward the end of the season last year, being the Eagles, and putting up a good fight against some of those other better teams. I will give the Bears a win against New England at home. I do agree with you. They're going to get swept by Green Bay, so that's the first game of their series here. Then Minnesota at Chicago. I will have them sweep Minnesota, though, like you did. I will have Detroit, though, sweep the Bears, so that's the next game here at Detroit. Chicago then goes to San Francisco. Easy one there for San Fran. Chicago at Minnesota, I'm going to give them the win here. Then Detroit at the Bears, even though they lost this game. I actually wasn't in attendance. It was a mauling of the Lions, but I think the Lions will actually get this one. Seattle at Chicago. I'm going to take the Bears here. I don't believe Seattle will be very good at all this year. I think they'll be a top 5 pick in the next year's draft. And then finishing off the season at Green Bay, although I could see them winning this game, because Green Bay will already have the division locked up, most likely, and therefore rest their starters. I actually applied that theory to our Lions here, and that's why I have the Lions losing their final game of the season.
I gotcha. Yeah, I thought that the final game would just have a little bit more implications for this division, because I think that they're going to be kind of battling out for that, either the bye or the extra wild card spots. Yeah, exactly.
It's quite possible. It's hard to say, especially with Detroit, who had a playoff spot clinched.
Yeah. And
they still played their starters in the final week of the season. So, it's really just up in the air.
Yeah, I got you. And also, all 4 of these teams face another, division opponent in that final week. It's Chicago and Green Bay and Detroit and Minnesota facing each other in Week 18 here. So I feel like there's bound to be some implications for the division, if not even the playoffs as well.
I concur. So you want to lead us off here with the Lions?
Yeah, let's do it. So I've got the Lions going 11-6, and it seems that you have the exact same record, but we do have
very different ways of getting there.
Yeah, definitely. But first up, we've got the Rams at Detroit, and I'm taking Detroit here. I thought that the Rams would be better than Chicago this year, but a little bit worse than Detroit, although I guess that's going to be hard to put into play since I only have a 1-game difference between the Bears and the Lions in terms of their record.
Right.
But week 2, I've got Tampa Bay against Detroit. And this, to me, feels like Tampa Bay is going to come in and win this one. Baker's going to feel a little warm, and he's gonna be happy. He's gonna get a win. Then we've got Detroit at Arizona. Feels like an easy victory for Detroit. Seattle at Detroit, taking Detroit there too. They've got their bye in week 5. And then we've got Detroit at Dallas, and now I'm taking Dallas to win this one. Just feels like Dallas will be always competitive as they usually are. I know they kind of got booted out of the playoffs early last year, but I think that they're due for a win against Detroit here. Then we've got Detroit at Minnesota. I'm going to take Detroit again. Tennessee at Detroit, taking the Lions. And then Detroit at Green Bay. I'm going to take Green Bay for this one. Then we've got Detroit at Houston. Rolling with the Texans still.
Of course.
Jacksonville at Detroit, taking Detroit. Detroit at Indianapolis, taking Detroit. Chicago at Detroit, taking Detroit. Green Bay at Detroit, taking Detroit here. So this is their second game against Green Bay there, and I think that they will split these games against Green Bay. I had Green Bay winning the first one at Lambeau Field. I think Detroit will win this one. Then we've got Buffalo against Detroit, and I'm going to take Buffalo here. Then we've got Detroit at Chicago, taking Chicago for the upset win over here. Or maybe it won't be an upset. I don't know. I guess it's too early in the season to say if that would be an upset or not. But then we've got Detroit at San Fran. I think that Detroit will actually win this one, even though it seems as though San Fran would be the favorite to win this game. And then closing off the season, Minnesota at Detroit. Going to take Detroit there too.
Good stuff. Yeah, so I agree with the 11-6. So a little bit of a step down from the... Did they go 13-4? I think it was 12-5 they won. Was it? It was either one of the two, 12 or 13
slightly
wins.
Worse than last year.
Yeah, slightly worse. I'm going to have them start 0-2. And here's my methodology. It applies to almost every single one of their first 5 games here. The Rams get revenge from the playoffs last year. I just don't see, like, how close that game was last year. I don't see the Lions getting another win. Even though they're at home here again, the Rams are too good to then lose this game. Like, Sean McVay is too smart of a head coach to have lost such a close game and then just lose again here right off the gate here. And they are hungry, and it's so fresh of a wound for them when they lost in the playoffs last year. Tampa Bay, same exact thing. That playoff game was close. Not only that, but if Detroit won this game, it would be the 3rd win against Tampa Bay in a year.
Wow.
It would be the 3rd win in a year, which is very hard to do against any team. We saw what happens when the Saints swept the Buccaneers in 2020. You know what happens? The Bucs beat them in the playoffs. It's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row.
That's
the
true.
Bengals beat the Chiefs twice in a row. They lose the 3rd one. It just happens. We saw it with the Bills and the Chiefs. The Bills won the regular season. The Chiefs got them in the postseason. Detroit at Arizona. I'm going to take Detroit here. Here we go again with the same methodology. Seattle and Detroit have played now 3 times each in the last 3 seasons. All of them have been high-scoring affairs with Detroit losing. Seattle now at Detroit. I'm going to have Detroit finally winning against Seattle. There's no way that Seattle beats Detroit 3 years in a row. Detroit at Dallas. Let's remember what happened last regular season. Detroit lost on that botched 2-point conversion call to Dallas. I think Detroit gets revenge here. So they go on a little bit of a tear here. They go up to Minnesota. They win there. Tennessee comes to them. They win there. They go to Green Bay. They do lose this one. Green Bay, although they're not sneaking up on anybody this year, they're still going to be really good. I also think they drop one going to Houston. That's a tough little road stretch there. They come back strong, beat the Jaguars at home. Then they go to Indianapolis. Tight game here, but they do get the Colts. Then the Bears come up to Detroit. They get them easily. Green Bay comes to Detroit, so they get 2 divisional wins back-to-back. I do have them beating the Bills. I don't think the Bills will be as good this year. I think Josh Allen might get injured during the season, as much as I hate to say it. So I do think Detroit wins this one here. Detroit goes to Chicago, gets a win there. Now, unlike my methodology, I'm actually going to go against it because it can't apply to everything, even though Detroit lost, blew that big lead to the Niners in the playoffs last year. I still think the Niners win this game here at home against Detroit. I think they look ahead a little bit to the playoffs, and they lose this one. They rest their starters because they're already clinched into a wild card spot. They cannot move up at all. Maybe they can get the 6th seed, but at bare minimum, they are the 7th seed, so they rest their starters. Dan Campbell realizes his mistake from last year that cost Sam Laporta's full healthiness, and he rests his starters. Minnesota gets one of their only 3 wins of the season.
Those are some good picks. We definitely did get there very different ways.
I think we only had like one of the same losses,
which
was Green Bay.
That is kind of crazy. You've got a couple little streaks here. You've got a 5-game win streak for Detroit
6-game win
and a
streak.
6-game win streak. That's how they get to the 11 wins.
That's kind of crazy.
That does feel funky to me.
I like that.
I don't like the 6-game win streak one. That feels a little scary.
I could see them losing to Jacksonville.
Yeah. Yeah, if they perform a little better than they did at the end of last season, then possibly.
Plus, the Jaguars lost to them 2 years ago.
Okay.
So,
yeah,
it's a fresh wound. These things matter.
Mm-hmm. That is true. All right, moving on to the Green Bay Packers schedule here, and we both have Green Bay going 12-5, but again, it's likely a little bit different.
Very different.
Yeah. All right, Green Bay at Philadelphia, week 1. I'm going to take the Eagles. The Eagles are going to come back hungry after they absolutely just kind of ended their season.
Imploded last year.
I know, yeah.
Yeah.
And they just absolutely destroyed themselves. I think they're going to come back and they're going to start off the season strong. But week 2, we've got Green Bay getting their first win of the season against the Colts. Then we've got Green Bay at Tennessee. Again, it feels like an easy win for Green Bay. Minnesota at Green Bay is another one I'm taking Green Bay. Green Bay at the Rams, going to take Green Bay. And then Arizona at Green Bay, going to take Green Bay. So that there's a little 5-game stretch. And I really only feel that they're liable to lose like a single one of those games, being maybe to the Rams here. But it feels to me as though weeks 2 through 6 are very winnable games for the Packers. But moving on to week 7, we've got Houston at Green Bay. I think this will be a tough matchup. I think it'll be a really good matchup, but of course had to just pick Houston just for funsies.
So you have Houston sweeping the NFC North.
I know.
It's a little bold.
It is a little bit bold, but I mean, like I said, this one really could go either way. I mean, I love, Houston, of course, but Green Bay is going to be a good team this year. They're going to be one of the best in the league.
Yeah, it's fair.
And so, yeah, I think that this game really could go to Green Bay.
I agree.
Yeah. Then we've got Green Bay at Jacksonville, and I've got Green Bay here, although I'm a little surprised to see you're picking Jacksonville, but we'll get to that in a moment. Detroit at Green Bay, I'm taking Green Bay. Then they've got Week 10 bye. So after their long stretch of games there, they get the week off in Week 10. Then they head into Chicago, and they're going to get a win here against the Bears. Then they've got tough stretch of games, probably their toughest stretch of the season in the next 3 weeks. They've got San Francisco against Green Bay. I'm going to take San Fran here. Then we've got Miami against Green Bay, and I'm going to take Green Bay. And then Green Bay at Detroit, going to take Detroit. So I've got 2 of their 5 wins coming in this little stretch of games, or 2 of their 5 losses, rather, coming in this little stretch of games. Then we've got Green Bay against Seattle, going to take Green Bay. New Orleans at Green Bay. I've got the Packers here as well. Green Bay at Minnesota. I actually have Minnesota with the upset here at home.
Wow.
I don't mean to say upset because I know it's too soon to predict that kind of thing, but
this would be an upset no matter what, unless Jordan Love is hurt at this point.
Well, Minnesota could end up being. I mean, Sam Darnold could just go nuts, or J.J. McCarthy could be unprecedented numbers for a rookie, better than C.J. Stroud.
Sam Darnold's going to get benched by like week 5 because everyone wants to see JJ.
Yeah.
But then JJ's not going to do anything either. So they're going to put Sam Darnold back in, and then they're going to use them like both simultaneously, like Tua Tagovailoa and Ryan Fitzpatrick.
That would be
it's just going to be a complete kerfuffle.
Yeah. No, that would be absolutely wild. But I feel like Green Bay is liable to lose one of these matchups here to one of their division opponents.
I think it'll just be to Detroit.
Okay.
If anything, they lose at Chicago, but that would be whew.
I would be surprised by that. Green Bay always comes into Chicago and wins, bro.
I know.
And then, sad. The final game of the season, we've got Chicago at Green Bay, and I'm taking Green Bay here too.
Alrighty. So, I agree 12-5, but quite a bit of a different path here. I think they do beat the Eagles in Philly. I don't believe in the Eagles all that much. I mean, like, what has changed? I think Nick Sirianni's a fraud. I think he'll be fired at the end of this season, especially if he was almost fired at the end of this past season. Then they go ahead. They beat the Colts at home. They go to the Titans, beat them. They beat the Vikings at home. Now, they go to the Rams. Let's remember what happened with the Rams this past season. The Rams, Matt Stafford gets hurt. Green Bay gets a lucky win while the Rams start Brett ripping. Let's remember, if the Rams started Matt Stafford, they would have easily won this game. If Stafford was healthy, because this was the point in the season where Jordan Love was complete poo-poo. He started that season hot. 3 touchdowns against the Bears, 3 against the Falcons. But then he was pretty bad for a stretch there. I mean, he was ugly for a good long while. I mean, they got destroyed by the Lions that first time. They got destroyed by the Vikings that first time. So, at this point, it's a revenge game for the Rams. They're not going to be losing at home here to the Packers. They bounce back at home against the Cardinals. Then they also beat the Texans narrowly at home here. They go to Jacksonville. After an emotional victory, they fall short to the Jaguars. They come back, though, beat the Lions at home, go into their bye. Very nice and prepared then for this Bears game at the Bears' place. Beat them there. Then they go home. I think San Fran, actually, wow, I'm surprised. Retrospectively, I had San Fran beating the Packers here. I think I might have I might now take the Packers, but we're going to roll with it. We're going to trust the Rhett of 10 a.m. on Tuesday, May 28th, more than the Rhett at 5:59, Tuesday, May 28th. San Fran beats Green Bay, I guess. Miami can't do anything in the cold weather. It's going to be freezing at this point of the year in Lambeau, so they don't do anything. Yeah. They don't beat Green Bay.
I picked it for the same reason. Yeah.
Detroit then goes ahead and beats them when they're at home. Green Bay goes to Seattle, beats the Seahawks. New Orleans goes into Green Bay and gets the upset. You guys know I've been banging the table about the Saints for the last month and a half here. Do I have to say it again? When the Saints and the Packers faced this past year, the Saints had a 16-0 lead. They blew it. They went to go kick a game-winning field goal. It hit the crossbar. It was only like 44 yards or something.
Yeah. An embarrassing loss.
If that went the other way, the Saints would have made the NFC Championship game. Green Bay wouldn't have even made the playoffs. I'm telling you, it's the simulation. Put it in the ChatGPT. They'll tell you the same thing. So they go into Green Bay and upset the Packers. Green Bay then beats the Vikings in Minnesota and then go back home and finish the season strongly against the Bears, even if they're starting their backups because the Bears are going to be just... The Bears can't beat the Packers, let alone in Green Bay. So,
yeah, no, I mean, I really don't foresee the Bears, winning the games.
Plus, I think the Packers will be able to improve their seeding, like maybe from the 3 seed to the 2 seed.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I feel like the last game of the season will be relevant here, and that the starters likely will not be benched.
At least not for the start of the game. Like maybe they'll play the first half.
Right. Yeah. All right, the Vikings here. We both are not very hot on the Vikings.
I see you made a little edit here. You dropped them down a game.
I dropped them down a game. Yeah, I think I changed. Was it this Colts game? I think I originally had the Colts losing to the Vikings, but I ended up changing it to the Colts winning because of Anthony Richardson. I forgot that they no longer have Gardner Minshew as their starter, and that Anthony Richardson.
Oh man, Gardner Minshew would beat him up even worse than Anthony Richardson.
I don't know about that. Dude.
When we get to the Raiders here, you're gonna see a little 10-7 out of the Raiders.
Dude,
I think
that's bold. That's really, really bold.
Yeah, well, Gardner Minshew is bold himself. I mean, with that long hair.
You're really hot on Gardner, and I guess you like
I like Gardner.
Yeah, and you like Scrovante and
I like
Brock
Scrovante.
Bowers.
I want to see Scrovante throw some more helmets this year and get mad. I love when players get mad.
He won't be getting mad if they're 10-7, bro.
Well, see, the thing is, that's the thing though. Like, they need one more game, one more win to get into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And Gardner Minshew, I will say, he misses a throw. He throws a pick. And Devontae goes over to the sideline and just yeets his helmet across the bench.
Yeah, but Brock Bowers catches it and throws it back.
Maybe Brock Bowers forces a fumble on the interceptor. Everyone's telling him, get down. He's trying to run it back for a touchdown. Bowers knocks the ball out of his hands. Then Jacoby Myers scoops it up and scores a touchdown.
Wow.
Wouldn't that be wild?
Dude, I'm slack-jawed right now. I'm absolutely gobsmacked.
Man.
I'm not sure how to respond.
I know. Maybe even Michael Meyer gets involved. Maybe he throws a nasty double block.
That would just be insane.
Just pancakes 2 guys.
That would just be unprecedented.
Could happen.
Exciting, though. Exciting.
Yeah.
It sounds like the way I would play a Madden game.
Yeah, except that would happen to me. I would intercept the ball and then it would just bone me.
Yeah. Agreed.
So. Anywho.
All right. Vikings 5-12, starting off their season with one of the few wins against the Giants. Giants are going to be the worst team in the league this year. We're taking Minnesota there. 49ers against Minnesota feels like an easy win for the 49ers. Houston at Minnesota, another easy win for Houston. Then we've got Minnesota at Green Bay, and I think that Green Bay will win this one at home, but I do have them losing to Minnesota later on. Then we've got Minnesota traveling to London to face the Jets here. And I think the Jets will win this one as long as Aaron is healthy. Then they've got their Week 6 bye after traveling for their London game. Then they face Detroit. And then I don't think they're going to win that one either. But Minnesota against the Rams here. Feels like the Rams should have an easy win. Like I said, I think that the Rams will be solid this year. Not quite as high on them as you are, but certainly good enough to beat a struggling Minnesota team. Then we've got the Colts at Minnesota, which is the one I already talked about. I am now changing to the Colts because Anthony Richardson, I think, will be playing well, assuming he's still around by like week 9 or week 10 here.
That's pushing it.
Minnesota against Jacksonville. Going to take Jacksonville for this one. I think that they'll be doing a little bit better than they were at the second half of last season. So they'll get the win against Minnesota. But I've got Minnesota winning against Tennessee at Tennessee. And this is another one here. This is I only have this being their second win of the season all the way down in week 11, I think that is. So that'll be wild to see a 2-9 Minnesota team possibly. But
I like the sound of that.
I do have them securing a couple more wins here. Against the Bears, I think that the Bears will win. But then we've got Arizona at Minnesota, and I'm going to take Minnesota there. Atlanta at Minnesota. I'm taking Minnesota here. I think that this one, you're probably going to say, oh, I want Atlanta to win because they've got Kirk now. It's a revenge factor for them. But I don't know. This feels to me like Minnesota would win this game because they got the sort of the worst end of the trade, I feel like.
I don't mind that at all. But like the thing is with this, I don't think it's much of a revenge game because I think Kirk like really likes Minnesota still. Like he looks fondly upon it, whereas Aaron Rodgers would enjoy tearing up the Packers when they face next year.
Right. All right, then we've got the Bears at Minnesota, taking the Bears here again to sweep the Vikings. Green Bay at Minnesota. This is the one where I think that Minnesota will get a victory here. And then Minnesota at Detroit, taking Detroit to win this game in the last week of the season because I think it will have some implications for the playoffs.
I like it. We have pretty similar thoughts on the Vikings. Both think they're pretty bad, but I will offer you a friendly wager. I contest that the Giants will finish with a better record than the Vikings.
No way. No, there's no way that's going to happen.
Well, then will you take my wager?
I'll take your wager, sure.
We're going to have to make a note of that then.
Yeah.
I think the Giants will most definitely finish higher than the Vikings. Although I don't think the Giants will be incredible. I think they'll beat the Vikings to start off. I think we don't have to wait that long to figure out which way this is going to go. Because this will already put the Vikings up and the Vikings down and the Giants up one right off the gate here. So, yeah, I like Daniel Jones is playing for his NFL career. Brian Dable kind of is as well. But then they go ahead and, lose to the 49ers at home. They lose to the Texans at home. They go to Green Bay and lose. They go to London, lose to the Jets. Aaron Rodgers owns the Vikings as well. They lose after the bye week to the Lions. They lose at the Rams. Go back home just to lose to the Colts. Then they go to Jacksonville and they lose again. And they go to Tennessee and lose. Then they go to the Bears and lose. Oh my, Arizona comes to town. They actually get a win finally. This is an upset. Then Atlanta goes to Minnesota. Atlanta beats him up a little bit, even though I don't think it's much of a revenge game. Chicago comes into town, beats them. Minnesota goes to Seattle. And Minnesota gets the upset here as well. I think both these teams are going to be pretty poor. But I think Minnesota squeaks one out here. Green Bay at Minnesota. Green Bay. Minnesota gets one at Detroit. Like I said, they're resting their starters here. So that's how they end up with a nice 3-14 record.
See, I'm really surprised by the last game of the season here because I just don't foresee Detroit resting their starters. Like, I envision that this game is going to, like, really be relevant for the playoffs.
Trust me, out of all the games, I feel the least confident in this one. But I'm just trying to be, like, super surgical with all this. Like, I really, really feel that, like, Detroit is going to be locked into a wild card setting. Like, I don't think the division will be in reach anymore.
Right.
Even though they're only a game behind. I just, like, they're going to look at Green Bay, and Green Bay is going to go into the Bears. Like, they know that the Bears are not going to beat Green Bay in Green Bay. So they're going to be like, let's just rest our starters so we don't risk, Amon-Ra St. Brown or Sam Laporta or Jahmyr Gibbs going down because we're going to make a deep run. Like, what the Lions really care about this year is the playoffs. Based on what happened last year, they had a great regular season. They had a deep playoff run, but they want to just get back there. They don't really care. They don't really care how that happens anymore. They just need to get back there, and then they're going to really turn it up. Like, I do think the Lions are going to make another deep playoff run this year.
Yeah.
But I think the regular season is going to be a little uglier
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. The reason that I feel that game is going to be so relevant at the end here is because I've got Chicago against Green Bay in the last week of the season as well. And so the Bears and the Lions will both be 10-6 going into the last week of the season.
We'll see, yeah. You have the Bears more relevant at this point than I do.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that game is going to matter because the winner will determine who will maybe secure a wild card spot.
Yeah.
And so both will be playing for their playoff spot.
See, like the way you have it, if all these teams did finish the way you have it, I think they would all make the playoffs because the way I would see it then is like Cowboys do win their division. They make the playoffs. I think Eagles get a wild card spot. Let's say all three of these teams then make it. Then you just have the Saints and like the Niners. Yeah, that would leave. Yeah, that would be it. Wow. Maybe the Rams sneaking over the Eagles. I think that's actually how it goes.
That would be crazy.
In your scenario, it would be the number one seed would be the. I'm going to say number one seed's the Cowboys. Number 2 seed is the Packers. Number 3 seed the Niners. Number 4 seed the Saints. Number 5 seed the Rams.
I would put the Niners above the Cowboys.
I don't think they'll get the 1 seed again. It's so hard to do.
I don't foresee Dallas being that elite this year.
I think all they need to do is like a 13-4 record, which is exactly what they had this year. That's all you need out of them.
Yeah,
I think they'll sweep. I think they'll win all their divisional games except for one against like the Eagles.
Yeah.
Like I don't believe in that division much at all. And I think only one team from the NFC South is making it, just like this past year. But obviously at the end of the day I disagree. I think that only 2 teams from the NFC North will make it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Anywho, I guess that's everything for our divisional predictions for the NFC North.
Yeah.
Wow.
It is. But we should do a quick little NBA playoff recap as well.
Yes, go for it.
All right. Round 3 playoffs here. They're not at all what we expected, and probably not what anyone really expected here. By the time we're recording this here, Boston has already defeated the Pacers in round 3.
That was fast.
4-0, yeah. Pacers were relevant for game 1 at least. They took it to overtime, but lost that game, and then they lost, the subsequent 3 games as well. And, the Pacers did better, I think, than people were expecting because they covered the spread in 3 of the 4 games here. I mean, they kept it close for the most part, but they
hurts the most about it.
Yeah, I mean, Boston is so elite, and they weren't able to even hang in there. But of course, the Pacers did worse than I thought because I did think that they would maybe get a win or 2 in there.
Me too.
Didn't see a sweep out of Boston, but yeah, they really did well.
Boston's on like a 7-0 stretch right now. Just a little casual 7-piece.
Just an absolute tear. And then even the other series here, Dallas Mavericks against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So Dallas is up 3-0 right now. Very surprising.
Right.
I thought that this was kind of going to be more of a back and forth, like 1-1, 2-2, then 3-3 going to game 7.
Very surprising here.
Yeah, but Dallas is up 3-0, and they've got game 4 tonight to see if Dallas can close it out.
The NBA needs the Timberwolves to win, otherwise these playoffs would have really tanked.
Yeah, and I know for sure. And I mean, if the Timberwolves pushed this to game 5, game 6, game 7, like the Celtics are going to have an enormous amount of rest, bro.
I know. So that's what I'm saying. I think the Celtics pretty much already got the whole thing locked up.
I know. Or they're just, if this game or this series goes to 7 games, Boston will be so tired because they had like a good week and a half off before the finals started, and they just we're ready to be done with basketball, and then they got to start playing again. It feels weird for them.
Might be. That's a good point.
But yeah, so got a couple best bets here. Gonna take Minnesota to win tonight against Dallas, but I think that Dallas will likely close out the series on Thursday in Game 5. And I'm also going to take Anthony Edwards with a little 0.5 unit play tonight to score 35-plus points at plus 470 odds.
Wow.
Yeah, I feel like Minnesota is going to win tonight, and if they do, it's because Anthony has a monster game. Just Just an incredible performance out of him. I feel like he really is the whole crux of that team, the one keeping his head up through all of this struggle, going down 3-0. So I think that he's going to have a good game. He's going to show up to play tonight and get a win for his team, and do so by scoring a lot of points.
Yeah, I think there's good value in that for sure. I like that.
Yeah, there actually weren't even any odds on him to score 40 plus, which I was originally going to put in here, but on FanDuel they only have Luka odds for scoring 40 or more points tonight.
Did you want to recap your bets from last week?
Oh man, sorry, I just totally skipped them, but yeah, so I hope you guys listened when we recommended taking the Pacers cash out before the series started last week, because of course they dropped 4 straight. So I'm actually recording this as a win in the doc, even though they did not win the finals. But the plus 11,000 bet probably came down to like something like a cash out of like plus 4 units. So that's what I recorded it for. When we said take the cash out, it was at plus 2,800. Mm-hmm. So I'm counting that one as a win, even though they didn't win the finals, since we said take the cash out. The Pacers against the Celtics did go over 222 last week. However, Boston did not cover the spread in that game. They covered the spread in the following game. And then Dallas Mavericks at Minnesota Timberwolves, I said would go under 206.5. That did not happen. It went over by like 10 points, I think. But I did say that Dallas would cover the plus 4 spread, which they did. They won this game outright. So, not bad. We had a 2-2 week, but also up a couple units from the cash out as well.
Good stuff. All my baseball stuff on the 21st of May was pretty good. Had the money line on the Reds. That pulled through at plus 100. Money line on the Marlins not pulled through, but that one was pretty close. Let's go back. That game ended 7-5. And the Marlins were up 5-4 in the 6th inning, so it was close.
Yeah.
I did say that pitcher, Rob Gasser, would not have a good start again. Mm-hmm. And he gave up 4 earned runs, 5 runs, 10 hits, didn't strike out anyone. Over 6 innings he still threw and didn't walk anyone.
Yeah.
And only threw 80 pitches. Just such a weird start.
That is, that's wacky.
Yeah. Then he went out to shut out the Cubs for 6 innings 5 days later, but I knew the law of averages would at least kick in for this Marlins game.
Right.
Seattle, New York, Nerfy their hit. White Sox, Toronto, Nerfy their hit. Was very upset about this Colorado, Oakland Nerfy not hitting. That one bothered me. That one really kind of just stuck in my craw. But the Texans, or the Rangers, Phillies, Nerfy hits. So 3 of the 4 Nerfs and then 1 of the 2 money lines here. So let's go into my best bets for this upcoming week, which is really just tomorrow, May 29th. You have Boston, and Baltimore. The Nerfy there, Cutter Crawford and Corbin Burns. It's a good pitching combo. Houston, Seattle, Justin Verlander, George Kirby, another good combo. And then KC and the Twins, which would be Seth Lugo, who is like the best pitcher in the league right now, versus Bailey Ober, who has been pretty solid as well, but a little inconsistent, but I think at home he has a good start here. And then you have the Marlins money line. Don't know why I keep betting on one of the worst teams in baseball's money line, but there's value here with Braxton Garrett pitching at plus 143. And then the Mets at home, Dylan Peterson making his first start of the season at plus 110 against a shaky Paxton for the Dodgers.
I like it, dude. Those are some good bets. And just to give a quick little update here, you're only 5 bets out of being back in the positive win territory for the entire year, which is better than I am. I'm like 10 games out. So
that would tickle my pickle humongously.
Yeah. So I'm excited for you, man. I'm sure you're liable to hit that here in the next couple weeks, since your baseball bets have been very hot.
I hope to stay that way. The Nerfies I've just had a little bit of a 6th sense for.
Yeah, you definitely have. Any fan mail this week or no?
Let me take a gander here. See if your dad snuck one in.
I feel like he didn't.
I feel like you know better than me.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Considering he is your Padre after all. But we will check to be sure no one else submitted, maybe, finally.
We had a comment, I think it was from like Caleb or something like that.
Really?
With like they just put like a bunch of hearts on our video. So thank you, Caleb.
Oh, good stuff. Thanks, Caleb. I appreciate that. Well, there you guys have it. That is all we have for today. Thank you as always for watching. We really appreciate it. And we will see you next week for our whatever division that you pick to do next. Maybe we'll just go like AFC North and just kind of do all the North, do all the West, East, South.
Yes, we could do that.
Yeah. All right. We'll see you next time. Bye now.